Well, welcome everybody to our virtual social hour. The first order of business is to figure out the drinking game. So, if somebody says something that's COVID related, we're all going to take a drink. So just keep that in mind. That's the first rule of the social hour. So just be alert for that because we'll throw it in. We'll throw it in different spots. So, so we appreciate everybody jumping online for our social hour. We got 35 people on board and people are coming online as we speak. We have the question feature that should be in your little control box for GoToWebinar. So I think the first question we threw out there already was, so where are you from? So hopefully that's coming up. You can kind of, you can chime in, you can, call the roll from wherever you are. We're interested in knowing where everybody's from, figure out who's coming in from the farthest away. So so again, my name is Tom Poeling. I'm the immediate past president of the BCA. With me are the panelists for this particular social hour. So I got Dan Forino on the line, who's the current president of the BCA. We got Jesse Sycuro, who is co-chair of the conference committee. I got David Sellers, who is going to be who's our featured speaker for the pre-conference workshop. And now coming in stealthily, here's Lyn Gomes, also a chairperson for the conference. Are we wearing masks today, Lyn? I didn't know. Mask on, mask off. So what we're going to try to accomplish here in the next hour or so, and again, it's a social hour, so we'll try to respect everybody's time, but we got a lot to go through. We're going to try to do more of these as the year goes along. With the BCA, we're very proud of the fact that we're a community, right? Some of my mentors, they coined the term that this is a co-opetition, right? We're often competitors in the marketplace, but it's a very highly collaborative team, right? So it's good to get together. It's good to have that connection to your network and talk a little commissioning. So we're going to want to do more of these going as we go into the year, maybe once a month or once every couple months. So we'll pick a topic and we'll kind of noodle some things around. But the one we wanted to do today was very specific to our virtual conference. So we want to really give you a whole lot of information. It's going to be different this year, and so we wanted to have an opportunity to kind of talk through the conference, talk through why it's different for what you're used to in the past. How you get connected to it. Why should you be interested in the conference this year? All that kind of stuff. So we're really going to hit that hard here in the next hour. So we'll talk a little bit about our updates. We'll talk about the virtual conference. We have a pre-conference workshop that'll be on the 27th of July. We'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what is coming up there. And like I said, David Sellers is our featured speaker. David has a nice little presentation that we will hit here at the end of towards the end of the hour, just to get you in the mood for what we're going to do. So, but mostly it's an opportunity to catch up. So again, as you get in, we'll have some poll questions, we'll have some opportunity to do some interaction. We're not going to we're going to mute everybody for right now because of dogs and kids and fire engines in the background. But as we go through, we'll do pay attention to that questions box and throw out your questions to the panelists and all your comments. So
and Tom, as BCA president and self-appointed rule master, I think you made a mention to COVID with asking Lyn if we're wearing masks today. So I got to call you out on that one.
You got to drink, Lyn. If you don't drink, it's bad. It's a bad scene.
Bad juju.
I think she's on the job site there, Tom.
I don't make the rules. Dan's the rule master, so talk to him.
And they will change sporadically as we go through, as do drinking game rules. So.
Right. So let's do a quick update on BCA stuff. The biggest thing coming up that's not COVID related? You weren't even paying attention, sorry. The thing that's coming up, thank you. So the thing that's coming up is our training. So we have a virtual training class. If you know the BCA, we do classroom training every year. Well, since we're not able to really do that, so we're going to do a virtual classroom class next week, actually. So we're going to do new construction commissioning on the 20th and 21st. We're going to do existing building commissioning on the 22nd and 23rd. So that's all next week. We've shortened the classes a little bit, and we've rearranged them for the virtual process. So it's 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, those 4 days in a row. So do check us out. So go onto our website. You know, you recognize our tabs there. So go onto the university website is where you'll find the information, and then the in-classroom courses. We'll get you more information on our typical classroom training. So a good training program for knowing commissioning process, and also you know, if you're interested in certification, right, the CCP, the ACP, this is a good training course. If you've got new people to the industry, it's a good refresher on how to do what we do, right? So anything else on the BCA side, Dan, that that's active we should talk about?
I think that covers it for right now. So we can update as we're going through.
The big thing that we're doing, as you know, and the reason we're all here today, the reason I've invited you all here is the virtual conference. So we're very heavy right now in the BCA into education. So you know, as we've all been seeing, as things have been rolling through, you know, we had originally scheduled our conference for Phoenix September 23rd, I think, but you know, as the world, you know, went upside down, and the feedback that we got from our members was, you know, I mean, what is it? I think I saw in Phoenix, like as we speak, is there anybody in Phoenix right now? Can you tell me what the temperature in Phoenix right now is? I think the last time I looked, it was like 109 friggin' degrees. What's the temperature in Calgary right now, Jesse, by the way?
It's a little bit above freezing.
Yeah, that's Celsius. Is it 35 degrees Celsius? So we decided to go virtual conference this year, just because we felt like we still wanted to get, you know, the education, the information that's commissioning centric. You know, we still absolutely want to get that out to our membership, and so we made the choice this year as a committee and as the board to do the virtual conference. So as you see across the left-hand side, we've got content galore starting July 27th. So basically every Monday for 6 Mondays in a row, we're going to roll out either a pre-conference workshop, opening plenaries on the 27th, and then starting August 3rd, we're going to hit a session a week. And so we're going to do live, so it's live content each one of those days. So it's kind of like it's our own Manic Monday approach. So you can catch all this stuff live, and we'll talk a little bit about the sessions coming up. But if you purchase the package, you'll also have access to it recorded. So if for some reason you are already tied up and can't make a Monday or a couple of Mondays in this mix, we're going to record all the sessions, and it'll be available to you for months and months and months beyond that. So you'll have, I mean, one of the big issues we've always had with the conference is there's so much really good information, but it's, you know, the complaint we get is, you know, gosh, it would have been nice to go, you know, the sessions that I liked were all at the same time, you know, so how do I get around, you know, seeing all this content? Well, we've solved that problem. Actually, COVID has solved that problem for you. And so this year you'll have access to all 25 sessions for the price of your registration. So we'll go a little deeper into pricing and registration, all that kind of stuff later. But just so you know, we're you know, the world gives you lemons, you make lemonade out of it, right? So we're very excited about the fact that you know, we're going to be able to give you the whole the whole conference and everything attached to it this year. So, let's, Sherry, can you throw up a poll question for me, if you could? One of the good things we'll do is, if you're trying to put together training programs and things like that, I mean, this is a really good way. I mean, you're talking about 25 specific commissioning related items. So a little bit about just the old-fashioned way. So we're going to throw up a poll question. So of the 55 people that are online right now, the question is, have you attended an annual conference in the past? Whether it's 1 or 20, what was it this year? This would have been our 22nd annual.
It is our 22nd annual.
This is our 22nd annual, but also now our first annual virtual conference. So we'll give it a minute to see how many of you online have actually been to one of our conferences. So what else can we talk about? I've been doing a lot of talking, Jesse. So is there something else I'm missing as far as this big picture conference stuff that what are you excited about going into this format?
Yeah, I think there's been lots of challenges with our in-person conferences in the past. It's location, and always hard for us to pick the location that best fits everyone's geography. And this is a chance for us to provide a conference and the content of it that's truly geographically agnostic. So no matter where you are, what you're doing, you're able to connect. And then I love the recording option too. We've always talked about how we provide the content to those that aren't able to make it or aren't able to attend for a certain part of the conference. So I think we've really expanded on how we use technology and how we can provide the great content and bring the speakers that we have available to us to the broader masses. And this is our chance to do that. Certainly, I'll miss the ability for us to connect and the personal aspect of it, but I like opportunities like this too, where we're trying to find these opportunities to stay bonded and connected as a family too. So I think we're trying to make the most of a situation, like you said, Tom, and in some ways, I think we're going to see a lot of benefits to this format that we're doing moving forward.
So now, Jesse, I'm really going to need some help to figure out something new to whine about. I was all poised for my red-eye discussion on coming back from Arizona, and I had everything planned out on what I was gonna bitch about for the next second half of the year. I got nothing now. I got no.
I've got no doubt by the end of this call you'll find 3 more things.
I got something in the hopper, but I'm bringing it up yet.
So that's a good transition. Thank you, Dan, about the next poll question. So Sherry, do we have an answer to poll question number 2 by chance? I can't.
Yeah.
We did. So yes is 75% and no is 25% as far as folks on the line. So so most of you are familiar with our conferences, and we certainly are very excited to excited for those that again, another real benefit, right, is do I really want to get on a plane? Do I really want to spend 4 days in Arizona? Can I afford the hotel and all that kind of stuff? I got a friend who might want to go to the conference, but we're not going to commit to go do this, right? So this is another great way to be able to for basically half the price of a traditional conference, to be able to show the level of content and information that this conference it's traditionally always been about. So yeah, I think we're excited about that as well. So the poll question number 3, which is the Dan Forino whining question, right? Which is, what are you going to miss the most about the traditional conference? So you want to throw that up as well, Sherry, please. I know for me, having been to the leadership conference in Phoenix, I'm going to miss the axe throwing. No question. Other things, Lynn, what were you going to miss about not doing a traditional conference this year?
I think I'm going to miss just seeing everybody. It's nice to see all your smiling faces, all on my Zoom screen, but those impromptu conversations that we had. you know, about, well, how's work going? And, ooh, I have this really tough problem. It's the collaboration. Tom, what was the phrase you used?
Co-opetition.
Co-opetition. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
stole
what I
that.
love about the BCA.
I stole that from, I think Bill McMullen told me that once. No, it's either an Ed Flair cloth or it's a Bill McMullen ism. So,
I mean, that
no,
is a perfect example of co-opetition right there.
right. That's right.
Hey, Tom, this is Liz. I'm going to interrupt. And the polling
Yeah.
question wasn't really a polling question, but a question. And
Right.
it's in the question box right now. If you can answer it through that, that would, then we can give you some better responses.
And Liz, I can't, you were going to tell me like who, yeah, because I can't see the responses necessarily, but did you say there were quite a few people from out of town that were dialing in?
Yeah, I think it's important to call out that we have someone attending from Brazil. That might be our furthest away. Several from Canada. Geez, all over the United States, Chicago, Phoenix. By the way, the temperature in Phoenix right now is 111 degrees.
I'll drink to that.
And also, Lyn and Jesse, a question came in about the conference, about COVID-related sessions. Drink. If you could respond to those questions where we have some COVID discussions, that would be great.
Okay, well, there's a good transition right there. So let's start with the opening plenary, which is Monday the 27th, sorry, 2/7. That one is in the afternoon, right? So we've got the pre-conference workshop in the morning, and then we'll do the opening plenary in the afternoon. And so, Dan, you want to talk a little bit about how you're going to kick this party off?
Yeah, so, you know, as much as we kind of, you know, we may have been known for our big fanfare and all our introductions, you know, it's I guess we're a little handicapped and a little handcuffed in providing that, but we've got some really good content leading up to the opening plenary. A little teaser behind me. I won't get into it too much, but you'll be seeing this, you know, this background in a future video out there to promote the conference. So stay tuned for that. You know, we're really going to be addressing kind of, you know, everything, our goals for the year, how we've kind of had to pivot over the year, you know, with our focus on engaging the new, you know, engaging the new generation of commissioning providers. We will be formally introducing the 20 under 40 application program at the opening plenary. We will have availability of that application for a, you know, hopeful October, November announcement of winners. So look forward to that. Also, what we here at the BCxA are doing for advocacy, how we're championing that, and just, you know, how we're, you know, doing our best to bring you content in this kind of modified world, whether it be from COVID, or just, you know, just everything that's going on. So I'm really excited about some of the sessions. I was talking with Tom and Jesse earlier about just the tracks, you know, all the great content we have. That kind of leads into our discussion with the keynote, Dr. Kevin van den Wijmelenberg, which is the first time I think I've said that even close to quick, over at the University of Oregon, who is a master of all things indoor air quality. I have his bio up right here. There's, you know, there's too much to mention here. He's worked with microbiologists, chemists, mechanical electrical engineers. He has been on Good Morning America, so we know we're getting the real deal here. He is also, beyond his role at University of Oregon, founder of the Institute for Health and the Built Environment and director of biology in the Built Environment Center at Energy Studies and Buildings Laboratory. So I think that's gonna be a really great session, you know, whether we're talking about our current situation or anything. It's just, you know, really gonna be great. I can't wait to interview him. I'm hoping I can get his name right before then. So we're talking about buildings and transformation through and beyond COVID-19. And, you know, as Tom will mention again and again, this is free content, just like this virtual happy hour. So You know, we're giving you, you're asking for it, we're giving it to you. So, you know, really looking forward to all our great conversations.
Yeah, Dan, I'd
say
say,
did you say this was free, by the way? I would have expected to spend hundreds of dollars on this kind of content.
I know, I put a price tag to it and Jason said, Dan, you're crazy. We gotta we go off this for free. It's too important.
we'll
Right,
charge
so-
you though, Tom.
Okay, well,
No, I'm actually really excited about this opening plenary too. You know, it's a tough topic, and I know that the research is continuing, and we're constantly learning more and more about how we need to respond and how we need to operate our buildings in response to the risks with COVID. The University of Oregon and Dr. Vanden Weimelenberg in particular was a lead author on association of microbiology in a peer-reviewed paper that came out really early on, really put into context what we did know about the COVID virus, and then what we know about previous research and building systems. So it's a good combination, a lot of really good information, and looking forward to hearing his updates on it.
And I gotta say, he's got to be amazing, because if Liz and Sherry is inviting someone from the University of Oregon, then they have to be pretty much amazing. If they're ducks versus beavers, I think that this guy's got to be a standout. So.
So it is a separate, so the opening plenary is a separate registration from the whole conference. So keep that in mind. So when you go online, everything to get on the conference, the pre-conference workshop, the exhibit hall, the whole 9 yards, goes through our website. So start with the BCxA.org. You see the website down there at the bottom. If you go onto our conference page, there's a registration button there. And like I said, there's a separate registration for the opening plenary. And again, it's free. So why wouldn't you do it? I don't know. But invite your friends, invite your family, invite your enemies. But that's the 27th at 4 o'clock Eastern. Okay. Real quick, I want to go into the conference itself and talk about the session. So again, every Monday in August, there's going to be a track session that we're going to present. So Lyn, I don't know if you got camera shy, if you're on the phone, but I know you've got some, you're the one that's in charge of the essentials track. So is there anything about that track you want to highlight for us?
Yeah, hey folks, sorry, my laptop crashed. So I'm getting it restarted, so I'm on my phone. There's my plan and my backup plan. All right, so we have some amazing sessions here for us. Oh, here's ready. There's some video maybe. Oh, there we go. All right. So we're going to talk about, the key things that both folks practicing new building commissioning and existing building commissioning can benefit from. So our first topic is collaboration, because, we are working with other folks, including our owners and the engineers and the design team and other members of on our team. Next, we're going to talk about building codes and standards. I mean, this is pretty much fundamental. It underpins both our scope and our budget, and it's what owners build their proposals off of. And then we're going to talk about pre-functional checklists, so that both new and old style pre-functional checklists, so that we can be sure when we come on site that we will be ready to go and ready to test. And then lastly, well, almost lastly, we have Sandy Renshaw, who was a commissioning provider and is now a building owner, going to talk about what he expects from commissioning providers, so that you can be successful as well. And then lastly, we have a track by our sponsor, Blue Rhythm. We are working to make this track every bit as successful and dense in content like we have for our other sessions that we pioneered last year. So Tom, I think that's it for me.
So Lyn, as far as people that we're really aiming this track towards, who would you say this one is really, the essentials track is really made for, beyond everybody?
This beyond everybody. I would say, well, to me, we put this together with everybody in mind. I mean, we have stuff for new building, existing building, those new to the commissioning industry, those not so new to the commissioning industry, owners, as well as commissioning providers. So we're trying to get everybody in the table and in the tent.
So then thank you, Lynn. So then on August 10th, our second track is going to be what we call Transformative Commissioning. So as you know, commissioning tends to get heavy into the MEP side of the world. And so we've always been very, and I guess I'll step back and say, I mean, this year, Lynn and Jesse, I mean, we've been reviewing these abstracts. You all have been on this committee many years, right? I mean, at least 22 years looking at these things or so, right? So I would say that the strength of the abstracts we got this year, and we got over 50, I think, this year, were as strong as we've seen them in, I think I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years. So it was a really good mix of abstracts this year, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Right. And so to pick through that, there weren't really too many lemons in the bunch at all. And then to be able to, number one, grind that down to 20 speakers, and then number two, be able to figure out speakers that could do it in a virtual format and on the timeline, because as you recognize, we're doing it in August this year instead of September. So a lot of ways that we tried to make this year's conference more uncomfortable, shall we say. So we're very excited, and we also, are trying to get outside the MEP box, right? So transformative commissioning is a good example of that. So we've got sessions that are different systems, right? So whether they're specific to the technology side of things, so I've got Josh Harwood talking about Python programming and taking that to the analytics to the next level. What does that look like? I don't know. I'm curious to find out. We're talking about using digital. It's riding the digital transformation wave. So that's talking about using technology more to your advantage as a virtual conference should be plugging more and more of. But then we're also talking about other systems, right? So how do you commission technology systems, IT systems, that sort of thing? And oh my God, is it really my responsibility to commission a structural system? Maybe, but if you're already in the trenches, what are some of the things you should look for, right? I mean, as you're already doing reviews of buildings, what are some of the rules of thumbs and things like that when you look at things that are outside, like structural systems, that maybe you should just put in your toolbox? So we're stretching outside the old box of the MEP side, and that's what this particular session is going to be all about. It's sponsored by N8, and so N8 will give us a presentation as well. I think their push is around closeout and how to be more effective in the closeout portion of commissioning. So we thank them for their support, and we look forward to August the 10th for that session. Another thing that so again, outside the box is building Enclosure. I think we've always tried to be faithful to building Enclosure and talk more about what that is. But I'll say that personally, I was very surprised by the quality of building Enclosure presentations that we got for abstracts this year. And we liked it so much that we made it on track, right? Well, so Lynn, you want to talk about that a little bit too?
Hey, Tom, this is John Rocco. I can talk about that if you're interested.
Yeah, go for it, John.
Well, the first thing I'm going to tell you is the absolute best thing about the abstracts that we got is that I didn't put one in this year. So you will not be stuck listening to me. Yeah, which is great. To Tom, to your earlier point, we had to turn down, I would say, as many abstracts as were accepted, we had to turn down, which, it's a tough thing, right? And they were wonderful abstracts. So what we tried to do, building enclosure is still somewhat of a new topic, but it's mainstream now, right? And so we wanted to make sure that you got the real nuts and bolts, that you got a little bit more than the 101, but you also got what you need. And I think that's what we did with our 4 tracks. So what we do is we're going to start off kind of at like the 301 level. We're going to dig in, and for thermal bridging, Morrison Hirschfield and others are going to lead the discussion and really talk about how you can improve the building performance through some really common thermal bridges that are part of everyday building. And then we're going to get into we're going to dial it back down to what's really important and just focus with George Blackburn to tell us what we're really, when you're doing the commissioning process, where are the key places that you can make a real improvement and not miss the high marks. And then we're going to look at, I love this one. So this is probably the one I'm most excited about, only because, we think of commissioning as being this elite service where it has to be for the hospitals or the institutional, especially when you get into, Tom, some of what you talked about with structural systems and some of these specialty ones. And some folks still consider building enclosure a specialty commissioning, but we can do this for the average building. Heck, we can do this for a pre-engineered metal building. And I think it's great that we're going to be, looking at that. And then lastly, I know the questions that I get the most often is, what do we have to do for testing and inspection? And so we're going to do a deep dive into how to develop protocols for that. And if you are not already completely excited, we are going to try to make our sponsored track. Again, yes, I'm sponsoring it, but guess what? You don't have to listen to me. So we're gonna talk about some new and exciting opportunities for COVID prevention. So if our keynote doesn't get you geared up and give you everything you need, join in for some of that. We'll try to make it as technical as possible. And that's all I got.
Thanks for throwing that in, John. My mouth was getting dry. So yeah, we appreciate Intertech and their sponsorship of the track on the 17th of August. So 24th of August, if that wasn't enough excitement for the month, Jesse, you're going to roll in and present on ongoing building performance.
Yeah, and the best part of this track is I will be presenting. So unlike John, we're bringing in the A team on this one. So a lot of what we talk about with commissioning is how we get to results, how we implement those results with our owners and on the facilities we work with. We're going to spend a whole day talking about how we sustain those results with building performance, and we'll kick it off with the best practices. We won't dwell on it too much, but really excited with the publishing of the ongoing commissioning best practices earlier this year. One thing that we haven't had a chance to do is really talk about those best practices in practice. So the original authors of the best practices are coming back together for the panel here to talk about how we've used the best practices in the past and some of the lessons learned and stories behind how we developed them to get going. Then from there, we're going to talk about some case studies with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories, University of Saskatchewan up here in Canada, and then expanding it to talking about ongoing commissioning at scale. And that'll be with Brookfield Properties, talking about how they've leveraged technology in this approach across a number of malls in North America. So really excited to get some owner's perspective, some provider perspective, and really talk about the actual where the rubber hits the road on implementation, case studies, and examples of how we've been able to be successful. It looks like you're moving me forward here. I did want to just touch real quick on the 24th. We are getting sponsored by Copper Tree Analytics, and their session as well is I think really interesting. They've been a long-term sponsor and have updated a number of times on their software platform and how it applies as a great enabling tool for ongoing commissioning. This year, they're changing it up a little bit and going to be talking about how they're starting to leverage machine learning and how that's furthering our abilities as commissioning providers to use technology in this space. So really looking to see where that nexus is between AI, machine learning, and commissioning as part of that session. And yeah, on the 31st, we're gonna close out our virtual conference with Mission Critical and really honing in on the true front lines of facilities and the work that we do with both healthcare and data center examples. And Dan, I think we got you talking early on about healthcare and highlighting how we as commissioning providers have been impacted by COVID and how through the work that we're doing, we're enabling healthcare facilities and infrastructure to respond to the pandemic that we have. Likewise, with data centers, we wouldn't be able to do conferences like this throughout the entire day, sitting in front of our computers, working from home, being effective in the work that we do without the data centers that back it. So really excited to see both from a provider perspective on where codes and regulations are going for data center commissioning. And then we've got a supercharged panel here with Facebook, Microsoft, Aligned Energy Data Center building owners coming to the table, talking about how the growth of their industry, the work that they've been doing over the last few months and the impacts of that, really what that means to us as providers and how we can respond and support them as we move forward too.
And that particular panel or that particular track sponsored by Facility Grid. So, so we're very long-term sponsor of the conference. So we're very pleased that they are maintaining their support, and certainly their presentation is gonna fit right in with these other topics, right? So we've kind of given you kind of a pretty deep dive into some of the technical topics that are coming your way. Of course, we know our audience, right? Our audience loves the technical stuff, so we wanted to give you a little more of that background as far as some of the different presentations that are coming, why we broke up the tracks the way we did. Certainly, I guess in the questions box, if there's anything in that grouping that you thought was particularly interesting, we certainly want to hear that kind of feedback, right? So so do throw in the questions chat box, if there's something there that you really thought might be something that you're real interested, throw it in there. We're interested to get your feedback. So so let's talk about what all of this is worth to you, shall we say. So typical conference costs, right, in the past, somewhere around $650, give or take, plus travel, plus hotel, plus axe throwing, plus a lot of heavy drinking at night. It's going to conferences costs money. So and to put this on, certainly we want it to be not as expensive, obviously. So we've priced out a couple of different levels. So for the individual, we've talked about a member pricing around $450. If we have students or nonprofits or others that you think are really would be interested in this, we've got a level at the $200 price range, and then we've got a corporate sponsorship. So corporate means that, and again, this all ties to your CEUs, right? So there's no BCA police that are going to sit in your conference room and tell you you can't throw this up on the conference room wall and give these presentations. They'll be on demand for the next 9 months or so. Of course, maintain your social distancing if you're going to do that. But the real key is the CEUs, right? So when you buy the presentation as an individual, you get access to the 25 CEUs that are tied to the conference. So one per registration fee. When you do the corporate, if you have a company that you're looking to do multiple folks and build a training program around it, and you want to buy more CEUs, that's what the corporate members or registration's for, right? So that gives you the ability to buy up to 10 persons worth of CEUs, right? And so a couple of things to keep in mind. Number one, we have a member and a non-member pricing structure. I guess one thing that I would throw out there is we're past the half part of the year, right? So we're in the half price membership part of our offering, right? So if you look at our membership page, you'll see that an individual membership nowadays is only $150, right? So if you go in and you buy a registration and a membership, it'll actually save you $50 on the whole thing, right? If you do the same thing on the corporate side, if you go in and you buy a corporate membership, and buy it'll allow you to buy the corporate virtual conference, and so you could save, what is it, Liz? It's something like $900, right? Off the full price. So you'd be crazy to buy the non-member price, right? Well, right. So you buy a $375 corporate membership or a $150 individual membership, and it cuts this price down. And then you get the opportunity to see other things that the BCA is up to, right? So that's my quick sales pitch. The value of what we're doing is less than a traditional conference. You get to see all of the 25 sessions on demand, and we feel really good about the conference. We're very excited about the content that's coming forward. So so check us out. So if you go onto the website BCxA.org, check out our conference page. There's registration buttons there. There's several ways to get to us. Or the easiest way is to get a hold of Sherry, because Sherry is the wheeler and dealer of the organization. So if you want a sweetheart deal, get a hold of Sherry. She probably will accommodate your requests. So
and Tom, I know we here at Horizon have a budget. I think it's like, I want to say it's $250 a person per year for your CEUs. I mean, that covers it to less than $7 a CEU, and people were ecstatic to get this all in 1 year. It saved us almost, quadruple, sextuple, whatever it is on the budget that we have for it. So I mean, it's a no-brainer when you're looking at anyone that has needs that many CEUs, and so make sure you're looking at that. It's some really great value, and I've been trying looking at some of the really cheapo, kind of invaluable content, and nobody beats $7 a CEU.
So when you go onto our website, just a bit of housekeeping. You can get through all this. You can get to the registration through our website. It will kick you over into our learning management software program. So that's called PATH. So don't get freaked out if it kicks you over to the pathlms.com website. That's the one we use when we do all of our classroom training and our tech talks and all that kind of stuff. So we're using the same software approach. Mostly that way we can keep track of all the on-demand stuff, right? And we can have that all available for you in the future. So when you get on there, it'll kick you over to pathlms.com, and you'll see kind of three buttons to look at. So you can either go into the virtual conference, and that'll dial you into more information as far as the individual sessions. You can go in and sign up for the pre-conference workshop, which we'll talk about here in a second with David Sellers. We also have a virtual exhibit hall. So our track sponsors, our corporate sponsors are in the middle of putting their information online. And again, we appreciate all the support from our sponsors, and we want to give them an opportunity to tell you what value they bring to the mix. So if you go into the virtual exhibit hall, that will bring up additional information, right? So that's our conference in a somewhat of a nutshell. So Liz or Sherry, is there any questions that have hit the hotline that we should take a minute and just respond to, or is it all just super clear?
I think we've answered most of the questions that have come in, Tom, and we're a little over on time, so we need to get David going here so everyone can hear it in the hour we've allotted.
So keep the questions going, and we'll make sure we catch it on the back end. So that's our introduction to the pre-conference workshop. So that's the first thing we're going to do on Monday, the 27th, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. for those of you on the West Coast. And so, David is a fixture with the BCA conference, and I remember, I've been to several of his talks, and I always come out way smarter than I go in. So this year, his 4-hour workshop is going to be on existing building commissioning tips and tricks, a lesson from his career in the field, and again, it's also a separate registration from the conference. So just keep that in mind, and it's a separate price, but it's an additional 4 CEUs on top of the 25 that you get with the conference. So we wanted to give the opportunity for David to give a little bit of a sneak peek for what he's going to talk about, and so he's got a little bit of a presentation tied to mentorship. And so, David, I'm going to give you the controls, and then you can jump into your content real quick. So let me figure out how to share. Or Sherry, can you help me share?
While we're doing that, Liz, why don't you put up that first polling question about how many people are doing what they headed out to do when they went to school. Okay, there we go, I think.
Dave, you should have control now, hopefully.
Yeah, it says I have the button, but the right now it's grayed out on me still, so I'm trying to, oh, because the poll's open. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. So as soon as the poll's done, I can turn my screen on, I believe.
You just let us know when you want to close the poll.
Oh, we just go ahead and close it so I can make sure I get the right screen picked and everything like that. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to show a screen of main monitor. All right. So you see an opening slide, everyone?
Yes, we do.
Nice.
Cool. All right. So what was the count on that, Sherry? I'm just curious. Did you see what the answers were on that poll?
Interesting.
And David,
So
we may not have your actual PowerPoint presentation, I don't think quite yet.
Oh, that's in theory what I'm showing.
Okay, I'll put this poll down so we could try it again here.
Okay. Yeah, I'm grayed out again now. But... All right.
There you go.
All right. So I guess the reason I ask this question a lot in classes, and it's not unusual for nobody in the room to be doing what they set out to school. One time, 9 out of the 10 people were, had been doing stuff that they went to school for. But a lot of the times people aren't, and that's just really unusual about this industry to me. And that's why I think the mentoring thing is really important. And it's certainly true of me, as you'll find out as we go into this. And like the first time I did a version of this talk, it was from Michael Ivanovich for AMCA. And he asked me to talk about what commissioning has taught us about mentoring and design. I started thinking about that, and I realized really for me, it was more like what mentors have taught us, or more specifically taught me about commissioning and design. So I started playing with that, and I actually started looking for pictures of mentors. And like, this is just a handful of them. Like, it would take 10 slides to get all the mentors if I could find pictures of them. But it was kind of interesting because when I thought about it, I realized I originally was thinking about it technically, and I realized there's a whole lot more to this. Like, for instance, my bride she is an artist and musician. She has no knowledge of HVAC, yet she grounds me, she supports me, she loves me. I would be nothing of what I am were it not for her. And she's cute, and she's got come hither eyes that she flashes at me, and it's just like this whole other side of life that you got to keep in perspective, But even one of my most technical mentors, long-term, Phil Sutherland, known from the first day I was in the industry, he'd often say to me, Davey, no matter how much you love what you do, it should never be more than 49% of your life. And that's how he's lived his life. And he's in his 80s now. And he still takes kids out in the field and says, here's how you do a system diagram, or here's how you estimate a load. But not if he's got a golf game or wants to work in the garden or his grandkids are coming. So he lived what he preached, and it's really done him well. And even I realize some of the mentors I have aren't people, but like, if you try to be the type of person your dog believes you are, you'll do really well because they just love you so much and believe in you. And I also realized that some of my mentors taught me to think outside the box, and they weren't people at all. They were the buildings and the systems I was working with. And I actually will talk about that little gizmo there here in a minute if I have time. How I got here, I was going to be an airplane mechanic, and I think, just to save time, because I'm worried that, we're long here, I'm going to skip some slides here. But two things I can remember from forever are my grandparents' farm and airplanes. And interestingly enough, my grandmother gave me my first ride on an airplane. It was that plane, not that exact plane, but it was Allegheny Airlines Condor 580. She always wanted to fly in an airplane. Grandpa's opinion was, if I'm going to die in an airplane, it'll have to fall on me. But one day on the way. They came to visit us in Pittsburgh. He said, Leota, I bought you a ticket on an airplane. You're going to fly home. I'll meet you at Black Machana. So she got a ride. She was so excited. She gave my brother and I an airplane ride. And like when I was a kid, all I wanted for my birthday was go to the airport, right? I'm going to skip that story. But my grandma on my other side, also a very strong underlying connection with the earth, which I think is why the whole sustainability and efficiency thing appeals to me. And I feel a connection to it because, like, my dad's parents were subsistence farmers. My mom's mom had a garden. Like, this is decades after she's passed, and it's a drought, but where her gardens used to be, it's still green. That's from all the love she poured in, is what I believe. But I also like to build things. So I had this technical inkling, and I built this motor for a science fair project, but I was really, and it worked, but I was really hung up because you needed, like, I was following the instructions and it said, you needed to cut a round circle out of a piece of plywood. And like, I didn't have anything to cut a round circle with. And like, I was really getting freaked out, like, how I'm going to make this, it's due tomorrow. And there's a guy up the street, Ted Malik, he's a physicist for Westinghouse Electric, an applied physicist, a theoretical physicist. And he's a great guy and really excited and friendly and interested, and I'd go hang out with him. And I wandered up to his house thinking, well, maybe he had something. And, you know, he was down in his shop and he said, nah, I don't really either. But he said, you know, David, why does it have to be round? And of course, like, duh, the light bulb goes off and I'm all excited. I go back and I build it and it worked. And, you know, there's some really good mentoring characteristics there. Like, Ted always shared his passion for physics. He made sure I understood why this thing worked in the first place. He didn't tell me the answer, he guided me to it. And then he followed up, like the next day he showed up at the house to see how things went at school and what did I get, you know, how's your grade, and show me how it works. And it was really cool. So those are some mentoring characteristics that I picked up from Ted. Right before I went to college, my dad took me to Oregon and I fell in love with Oregon. So there's that connection with the earth thing coming into play. And so at that point, you know, Dad had shared one of his dreams with me. And I thought, now I got a plan. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get my aircraft maintenance engineering degree, become a mechanic, learn to fly maybe. And then I'm going to get a job with Boeing, you know, out in Oregon or Washington, and, you know, deal's done. You know, my life, you know, is right on track. And of course, reality intervened. I did learn to fly. In fact, my dad was leaning on the fence. He'd come to pick me up to take me home. He saw me pass my check ride, basically. What's cool about that is, like, I didn't know it at the time. My dad worked for Penn State. I could have gone to Penn State for almost nothing. Like, we had a family farm near there. I could have probably stayed there. And that never came up. When Dad realized I wanted to do this aviation thing and the parks was where I should go, that's where I went. It was like, you know, you can work summers and help out, but that's what we're going to do. And the reason I learned to fly is I went home and worked that first summer, and he said, you know, we're doing pretty good and you've made enough money for your books and then some. Looks like about enough for you to take those flying lessons. And so I did, and he saw me pass my check ride. It was my first passenger too. And so mentors are pretty selfless, you know. There's another quality. I actually worked at the flight line lab, technician, mechanic, and also taught flight line lab. So I've realized one time fairly recently, well, I've been teaching technical hands-on stuff for a really long time. And John Moyne was one of my mentors. And one of the main lessons, and I've heard myself say this to people, I called John up the last time I talked to him and said, I just said what you used to say to me to somebody. I was pretty paranoid when I started working on planes, like, you know, somebody's going to get into this and fly, and they could, if you mess up, they could die. And so I triple checked stuff. And, you know, John was signing the logbooks. There's certain things I could sign a logbook for after I got my license, and certain things he had to. But initially he was signing everything off just because my license had shown up in the mail. And one day he came out, you know, just sort of casually said, you know, David, didn't you already finish that? And I said, oh yeah, I'm just triple checking it. And he said, well, you know, I would have signed the logbook after you did it the first time. And you probably need to trust yourself, because, you know, if you want to make it as a mechanic, people aren't going to pay you to triple check it. They're going to pay you to do it once. And, you know, just something to think about. And he wandered back off. And so I buttoned it up, and he went in and he signed off the logbook. And a couple of days later, I did an inspection that I could sign off. And so I go in with my clipboard, and this time Bill Toomey's sitting there, who is another one of my mentors. And just, they're both sitting there, legs up on the desk, you know, a cup of coffee, logbook sitting out. And I put the clipboard down and said, it's good to go, John, you can sign it off. He said, well, didn't your license just come the other day? And I said, yeah. And I can still see him. He puts 2 fingers on this logbook and slides it across the desk, turns it around, sticks a pen on it, and says, well, you ought to sign it off. And that was like this really sobering experience, but really cool experience. And I look over and Bill Toomey's just gleaming, like he's just glowing. And there are a couple more mentoring characteristics I realized when I remembered that story. Mentors encourage self-esteem, and they set professional goals, and they're proud of you. They're just proud of you. And that's a very cool thing too, okay? So basically I was doing the airplane thing and my plan fell apart because when I got out of school, like Aerospace was in the pits. Boeing had laid off 40,000 people, and I couldn't find a job in aviation other than piecework as a mechanic. And Al Black, who had been an instructor at Parks and then went to work for McClure Engineering, and who I actually got to know, personally because of we went to the same church. He calls me up one day, says, we're doing work in cogen plants, and we're trying to figure out how to do preventive maintenance and start up our own stuff. And I got to thinking, you could be a really good fit for that. Have you ever thought about maybe a career in HVAC and maybe interviewing with us? And I said, well, what's HVAC? And that's, think about it. I didn't know what HVAC was. And so Al just, he said, that's heating, ventilating. It's just the stuff you studied, just in a different form. And so I ended up interviewing. And in the course of that interview, and so a couple mentoring characteristics. They answer dumb questions without judgment. They help you see things differently. And Al, you've heard me, if you teach, I say the gazindas equal the gazadas. That's Al. But when I mentioned that to him a couple months ago when I talked to him, he said, actually a mentor told me that. So, it's kind of cool how this stuff gets passed down. But anyway, I go for this interview and I meet Bill Code, and he wrote Energy Conservation as an Ethic. It's a paper in the late 70s, early 80s, but he actually basically gave me the paper in the course of the interview, and I was so inspired because Bill was saying, we have more than just a professional obligation. We have an ethical obligation because we're managing how these resources are getting spent. And that's why our company is really focused on efficiency, and it's really important to us. And it really inspired me. And I walked out and I really wanted to work there. And at the end, mentors inspire you. At the end, at the last minute, I actually got 3 job offers and 2 were in aerospace, but I took the one at McClure. And I was thinking, and you're wondering, why is there a Lego dinosaur? Well, because that's like a Lego dinosaur. How cool is that, right? That's like 6 feet tall. It's like at a display that was at the museum we took the grandkids to. But the reason it's there is a method of my madness. I'm thinking, okay, so my dad and mom just spent all this money to put me through an aviation school and let me learn to fly and stuff. And now I'm going to go do something different. And I told my dad, and he said, well, you've actually been worried about the energy crisis for a very long time. He said, when you were about 7 or 8, we were driving out through the countryside in Pennsylvania, and there's a strip mine. And you asked what that was, and I explained to you, they were digging for coal, and you asked me where coal came from, and so I gave you it's from swamps and dinosaurs, and they got buried and compressed, and you said, well, what happens when we run out of coal? And he said, oh, well, I told you we'll never run out of coal. And I was quiet for a minute, and I started looking around. He said, you looked around, and he looked at me and said, I don't see any dinosaurs. He said, you've been worried about this, so maybe this is your destiny. And so that's another mentoring characteristics. They know your history and they advocate for good decisions. I've told people, hey, you ought to get experience in some other part of the industry, and then they go do that. It's like, oh crap, I wanted them to work for me, but it's a good thing in the big picture. And so they advocate for good decisions. So now here's another polling question. How many of you think you've been blessed with one or more great mentors? And Liz, do you think, are we doing okay? Should we do that or just skip it?
You're good. Keep going.
All right. So let's see how many people think they've been blessed with one or more great mentors. And I don't know if this is where you put something up again.
Yeah, so it's up right now for everyone to answer. If you put in your answers, we'll give it just a few seconds, and then Sherry will tally the results and we can show them. So that's awesome results, and yes, people are blessed to have one or more mentor.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's a great thing. So, if I go back and I think about mine, and I thought about a little bit more, I realized, oh, there's some I didn't put up here. The buildings, which is sort of where I want to head with this, and sort of set up maybe the class a little bit. And I ended up actually, one time I did this, I ended up calling it Buildings Have Taught Me About Commissioning and Design. And basically, because this is one of my new definitions of commissioning. Commissioning is a process during which buildings are mentoring us about design. I mean, you do something that violates physics, the building just tells you about it. There's just not, it's just, not going to put up with a lack of understanding of physics. And so airside economizers are a real common process. And in fact, it's one of the things we'll focus on in the class, because they have really great energy savings potential, and they're very simple in concept, but they're a challenge to keep working. And in class, we're going to basically use a model and let you check out the economizer, see what you think. It'll work using a checklist that was published in the functional testing guide. Then we're going to talk about how would you fix any of the issues observed, and what's that look like, and what's some of the cost benefits. But like my first economizer experience actually was maybe not even that long, 3 months after I started working. And I have to explain one pipe controllers just briefly for you to understand this. But Jerry Williams decided to send me out to fix this air handling unit that we had designed and just gotten started up. And I think Jim and Gagne hadn't balanced it even, but he'd gotten a call and the economizer wasn't working, and it had a one pipe control system at that time. And basically a one pipe pneumatic control system as an actuator, spring, everybody knows how that works. And the controller is just a flapper. The bimetal moves the flapper to and from a nozzle. And there's a restrictor T that's kind of like the heart of the system. And basically as this flapper closes off the nozzle, it starts reducing the airflow out of the nozzle. And so if there's less airflow out the nozzle, there's less pressure drop through that T, and the pressure downstream of the T approaches the upstream pressure. And so the actuator will extend, basically. And as the flapper moves away from the nozzle, the opposite thing happens. So that was the type of system that was controlling the economizer in this air handling unit. And I get out there and I look, and sure enough, the outside air damper, it's not even open as much as that one. It was pretty much closed. And so I put on my mechanic's hat and I start troubleshooting, and I look at the gauge and it says 0, and I pull the tube off and there's no air coming out. And I trace this tube back and it comes to this little T, right? And I think, I wonder what's up here. And I pull tube off one side of the T, there's all kinds of air coming out. And so I take the T out and I start looking, and I'll be damned if there isn't some piece of crap hung up in it. And I pry that out with like the toothpick thing on my Swiss Army knife. And I'll be darned if it hadn't been drilled out this factory. Like, you see where I'm heading, right? And I found a restrictor T, and I wasn't smart enough to know it's a restrictor T, right? So I go down to the shop out at the place and I drill it out, put it in, and of course the actuator extends, and I'm thinking, Jerry, and I just adored Jerry then, even more now, and I'm going back to the office, and Jerry's going to be so proud of me. I fixed it, and it didn't take me that long, and now the economizer's open, and I get back in the office, and this is back, I still see Jerry at his desk. He had like the green engineering pad and a calculator. We didn't have computers back then, and he's working on something, and he looks up and says, "Oh, how'd it go? Tell me what you found out." And so I start describing this to him, and in his face sort of, he was smiling, and then a little less smile, and then he sort of sighs, and he sort of shoves aside what he's doing. He says, "Kid, let me explain one pipe controllers to you," because I had just, totally screwed up the system, not fixed it. And what he did then, he explained it to me, answered all my questions. He said, "Now you need to go fix it. And here's where I think you can find restrictor T." And back then, there's no internet, right? You don't go online and find restrictor Ts. You got to go to the parts house and find them. And that was an experience all in of itself. Eventually, I got it fixed. But Jerry exhibited some really great mentoring, answered my questions, made sure I understood it. And I'm leaving the office at 5, see you, Jerry, and thinking, I wonder why he's still working. Well, that's because he spent an hour with me, and he had a deadline, and he still has to work. And so that's another selfless thing. And it, like, when you're being mentored, at some point it'll dawn on you that, oh, that hour or two they just spent with me meant their deadline didn't go away. They're just working late tonight. Just say thanks, try to remember that. Okay. Another place I was mentored a lot by the systems was Memorial Hospital, Carbondale, and Joe Cook in particular taught me a very important thing. Well, one thing, he didn't kill me. First time I met Joe Cook, we had just done work on a surgery system. We were getting ready to bring it back online, and Phil had sent me down with smoke sticks and stuff to look at pressure relationships. And I'd never thought about pressure relationships. So I'm running around with a smoke stick, and oh, look at that, it's positive, and there's air leaking in around this receptacle. Oh, we better write that down. And I was having a blast, and all of a sudden the fire alarm goes off, right? And oh yeah, it's kind of smoky now. And Joe comes flying up the stairs, and he looks at me with my little smoke stick. And he starts laughing. He goes, I don't know if I'm going to kiss you or kill you. And he said that because he was so pleased that there's an engineering group that actually was aware of this whole pressure relationship thing and testing it. But he had wished I would have told him I was going to do that so that he could have, disabled the fire alarm system. But anyway, that's how I met Joe. And later on, we were doing a project and we were in this boiler room where he's standing. That's at the end of the project. But we were, at the time, this hospital had been built like in little chunks. And so every designer, for God knows what reason, had pretended the rest of the building wasn't there and designed their own independent little system for the little wing. And we were going to network and we were building a central plant. And I was there trying to figure out how to integrate all these little hot water plants into the central plant. And it was like July, it's like 110 in this boiler room. And the boilers are firing like crazy because reheat and sterilizer steam loads, and chillers are running like crazy. And the light bulb went off in my head that you could probably do reheat with 85, 90 degree water maybe, because reheat, you're just making the air a little less cold because you cooled it to dehumidify it, but you don't need it that cold at the flow rate you have. Not heat. It doesn't have to come out the diffuser hot. It just has to come out the diffuser a little less cold. And I just said that out loud to Tom and Joe. I said, I wonder if we could do reheat with the condenser water, like recover heat off the condenser water. And Tom was like, he was the director of engineering. He's like, that's an interesting idea. And we started talking about, should we model 500 coils? And Joe, I remember he was sort of standing there for a while and looking at us, and he kind of sighed and shook his head and he wandered off for a minute. And he came back and Tom said, everything okay? And just said, yeah. He said, actually, the discussion just got a little over my head. So I just went over and turned the hot water temperature down about 5 degrees. I'm going to do that every couple hours until I get a cold call. But you guys go ahead. It sounds really interesting. And I was thinking, yeah, okay, right, Mr. Practical. That was the first person that basically said, let the building tell you the answer to me. And that's like my mantra, it's like on my blog, the buildings are talking to us, And so Joe taught me that. I also learned a lot about pumps. Like my first pump selection was in the chilled water plant there. And this is the model of the chilled water plant we'll be using in the class to look at pump optimization and things like that and learn how to maybe do the scoping exercise and stuff like that. But it's not unusual at all to walk into a central plant like that and discover throttled valves. And that's an opportunity. And there's all sorts of different ways you can pick up those savings. But the bottom line is there's opportunity there in being able to recognize that. Now, my first pump selection was dead on design flow at startup. And I remember Johnny Vera, who's the fitter, he looks at that and he smiles. He said, Davey, you design them and I'll put them in. We're a hell of a team, Davey. And I'm thinking, no, we aren't. That a 10% safety factor in there. I thought we were gonna have to throttle a little. I think, what happened to my safety factor, right? But you can get really close if you do a good job, but we don't sometimes do such a good job. So there's lots of opportunity out there. I also learned about the affinity laws because I was picking that pump. Phil taught me about the affinity laws, and so I was trying to project the impeller line, and it wasn't matching the Bell and Gossett curves. And like after banging my head against the wall for about, I don't know, literally about 6 hours trying, what am I doing wrong? I finally went to Phil. I said, okay, Phil, I obviously didn't get it. You told me how to do this projection thing, but it's not matching the Bell and Gossett curve. What am I doing wrong? And Phil said, oh, I should have told you about geometric similarity. And so we'll get into that in the class, what Phil taught me, but I learned that there. And I also actually, my very first variable frequency drive, I used a variable speed drive, an eddy current clutch on an air handler, but back then drives were way more expensive than they are now. But I had realized because of what Phil and Jerry and Bill and Chuck had taught me that, the relationship between speed and flow. And I had this pump that we needed to adapt to a new condition. We were thinking we'd have to buy a new pump. And I realized with the VFD, I could overspeed it a little bit and had a big enough motor, I could have the perfect pump by running it at 68 Hertz. So all those lessons I learned from the pumps and the pipes and the people at Memorial Hospital Carbondale, we'll be talking about some of that kind of stuff in our class. And so some bottom lines on all this, like mentors have a lot they can share with us from their experience and their life careers. And buildings and systems have a lot to teach us, but we ought to get out there and get dirty a little bit, which is like sort of what's cool about commissioning people's, they want to get dirty, right? Let's get hands-on. And so here's another poll question. We're almost done here, but how many of you aspire to be mentors out there? I'm really interested in that. So I'll let them put their poll up for just a little bit and we'll see what you say. So we doing okay on that, Liz?
Okay, Do you aspire to be mentors? 93% say yes.
Well, great. That's all I wanted to hear, because everybody has something to give. Like, if you learn something from this presentation, if you learn something at the conference, take it back and share it. That's one of the best things you can do. Why does it matter? This is one of my favorite quotes. Gene Cernan, basically said, we went to explore the moon, and in fact, we discovered Earth. And it was so true. Like, we'd never seen it. Like I watched Alan Shepard go up. I remember watching Sputnik fly over, sitting on my dad's shoulders, and it was like this whole new perspective. And like there are pictures from Apollo 8 on calendars, and Joni Mitchell wrote that song initially, and then later on she wrote this song like, oh my gosh, we're really screwing the planet up. And it mirrors a quote that I'd read at a very young age in a book called Touch the Earth. How can the spirit of the earth like the white man? Everywhere the white man has touched it, it's sore. And we were seeing that and realizing that. And like the astronauts, I read a lot of their stuff, and every single one of them says something like this. Michael Collins is pretty eloquent about it, but I'm not going to read that whole thing, but basically he's saying it's fragile. The earth is so fragile. And he concludes that interview saying, all this stuff we're doing now with the trashing the oceans and the waste, that's no way to treat a planet. And I guess what I'm saying to you is, that's no way to treat a planet either. We know how to make these systems more efficient. When we find a throttled valve, let's figure out how to get that valve open and optimize the pump without throttling. Yeah, sure, throttling saves some. Right sizing, it's the best thing, but if it's not right sized and it's throttled, let's take care of that problem. We know how to do that, okay? And Neil Armstrong said, long quote, but he basically said, if we found people skillful enough to reach the moon, certainly we can find people to solve our environmental problems. And what I'm saying here to you is, like, you're those people, especially those you younger people. And Jay Santos is a principal in our company. He often says, we're running out of silver bullets. And what he means is, like, motor efficiencies you aren't going to get much better. Thermodynamic efficiency or refrigeration cycles, you're approaching theoretical limits. How much better are we going to get than LED lights, right? It's going to come down to operations and how well we adjust and optimize and adapt and tweak and tune our facilities, both initially and as they change, like ongoing commissioning, right? That's what's going to matter. And we're running out of silver bullets, and you guys are the silver bullets, okay? And you're also the next greatest generation. Like, my dad saw that. He was at Omaha Beach, and we look up to that generation because of the challenges that they met and what would have happened if they hadn't met that. You guys, but I'm getting older, we got a pretty big challenge, maybe even bigger and scarier than that one. And you guys are going to pull it off, and you're going to be the next greatest generation. So bottom line here, continue. I'm hoping to work to solve the problem. Take advantage of the stuff that the BCA provides to learn. Share what you learn. Be a mentor. I'm just thrilled that 93% of you, maybe even 94, 95 now, want to do that, and have fun doing it. Like Arik, he's took the Energy Center class. Clearly, he's having a good time. So that's that. Thanks for listening. The slides are up on the website if you want to grab them. I think Liz is going to put them someplace too. And I'll stop talking now.
So thanks, Dave. Appreciate that sneak peek into your presentation coming up here in two more weeks. So if that was pretty much the gist of what we wanted to go through. I appreciate everybody hanging on. Sorry we went a little longer than the social hour, but we had a lot of content to go through. So again, just an opportunity to introduce what we're doing. The pre-conference workshop is on the 27th. The opening plenary on the 27th as well. It's free. When we have every Monday, basically every Monday in August, we've got content coming your way. So we're excited to bring it to you, and we just encourage you to get onto our website at bcxa.org and look at our conference site. Check out the different sessions, and if you have any questions, by all means, send emails back to the staff, and all that stuff is on the website. So yeah, hopefully we get to see you in a couple weeks, and we appreciate you guys hanging on today. So from the panelists, from Dan, anything else to add before we let everybody go?
No, I'm pumped that I'm giving the opening plenary and I get free access to David's Seller session here. I got to brag about that. So if you want free access to David's future sessions, make sure to sign up to be a BCA president and join the iBod so you can get some free sessions in here. You can't beat it. So
Jesse, anything from the humble Canadians?
Looking forward to the conference, and David, just thank you very much. It's always great to listen to you and your stories, and great to see some of the background shine through. So thanks so much.
Glad to do it.
I'm pumped. I'm going to go mentor somebody right now. They're not even going to ask for it. It's going to be like a Gangster's Paradise, Michelle Pfeiffer kind of thing, going to the inner cities and doing something here. So.
Dan, that's called harassment, not mentoring.
Oh, okay. All right. So I'm not going to do that.
Lyn, anything from you? You're on mute, I believe. I can't tell. Your lips aren't moving.
How's that? I'm just looking forward to sharing all this great content with everybody because we, as a committee, we've worked so hard to find the best presentations out there. I can't wait to see everybody.
Right. Liz, anything from any questions or anything else that we need to go through before we let everybody go?
No, but as I always often say in large group meetings, Sherry has all the answers. You can contact me and I'll help you out as best I can. But also just to reiterate, we do have student pricing for the conference at $200, and we have people willing to sponsor other students. So please, please contact students, have them get in touch with Sherry. We have opportunities for them to attend, and we can get the next generation excited.
And Liz, maybe not even the $200, not to undercut us, but if you do the corporate rate and hey, I only got 8 commissioning providers that need CEUs, there's always the opportunity to offer one out there to a local chapter member or a student or an intern. So try and think outside the box. The only way we're going to get these guys engaged, so guys and gals engaged.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that I appreciate again everybody's time for jumping on. Hopefully this was helpful. Again, we want to do more of these. We apologize that this was probably a little more content heavy than the normal ones. The next ones will be a little more relaxed, and we won't. We'll take on a few topics, maybe some advocacy topics, and just spread some knowledge. So we'll talk to you all in a couple weeks, and have a good week, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
See you, everyone.
COVID.